Welcome to Prison Professors. I am Michael Santos, and today I am super enthusiastic to introduce you to Leslie Kalil. Did I pronounce it right?
Yes, thank you.
So Leslie and I have somewhat of a history, but it's a history that it's almost one-sided in a sense that I didn't know about our relationship because it started when I was inside of a federal prison, and I think you were a graduate student. Is that right?
Correct, yes. I was studying at Syracuse University in the social work program.
What year was that?
2005.
So in 2005, I was in about my maybe my 15th or 16th year of imprisonment, maybe 20th year, 18th year, because I started in 1987. So I was in my 18th year of imprisonment. I was probably already in a camp, and I was working really hard to connect with universities because I hope to find some kind of way to help more people understand jails and prisons. And how was it as a student at Syracuse that you came across this work?
I enrolled in a course to learn about working with inmates, and I used your book as a textbook about prison.
So you were a student or a professor? I
was a student.
Was the book assigned to the students, or is it something you found on your own?
It was our textbook.
And which book was that, about prison or Inside Life Behind Bars in America? Do you remember?
About prison.
About prison. So some history on about prison. I wrote that book with hopes of helping people like Leslie, and it was really just a description of from a person who served time in prison, what that perspective was like. And I think it was sold to universities alongside Dr. George Cole's book, American Corrections. He was a mentor of mine. And then what did your career do? What did you do after graduating from Syracuse?
Well, my internship was at the Justice Center in Syracuse, New York. And I loved the job so much, they hired me as my first job as an official social worker. So that was my first career job as a social worker at the Justice Center.
What is the Justice Center?
It's our facility that when you are arrested, you are placed there. It's a holding facility. It's a maximum level security facility, and that before you're sentenced, you're held there. And then there are occasionally inmates that are held there that are back in the city for court appearances or appeals.
So this is effectively a pretrial detention center for maximum security, for people that have maximum security that are facing criminal charges for felony offenses. Is that right?
All level offenses are held there. So anything from misdemeanors and violation of parole until they're shipped out to other facilities.
And what is the role of a social worker in working with those people?
My role primarily is to help inmates adjust and to learn coping skills, and then to help them to move on to a different facility or back into the community, and to connect them with the services if they go back to the community, and to help build their coping skills in a different facility if they're sentenced to another facility, just to help them adjust no matter where they end up.
So you used obviously a lot of textbooks and theoretical work to prepare for a career in social work, working with people in jail or prison. In what ways did a first-person account of working with somebody who was actually in prison differ from the literature that you received from academics who maybe studied prison and didn't ever experience I'll say the indignity of being incarcerated?
Well, I can say honestly, I couldn't put your book down. It was fascinating to read. It definitely was more realistic. Reading textbooks and hearing a professor's point of view versus yours, yours was more authentic.
And when you went into the career of social work, were you able to use any of this work as a resource in helping some of the people that were serving time and trying to transition into society?
Yes. I pulled pieces from your straight A guide.
Huh? So
I was excited to use that.
And how did the people in custody, how did they respond to that message?
I feel like it gave them more hope. It gave them something to look forward to, because I would always preface using your work with a little history about you. and that you spent a lengthy time in prison and you came out better for it. You improved physically, mentally, emotionally. You just came out a totally different person. You don't have to sit idle and not do anything but work out.
I think that at the time I was not even out yet. I didn't get out until 2013. So
Right.
I was doing all of that work preparing to get out. At the final stage of my journey, I wrote the Straight A Guide, the first version of that, when I was probably in my 23rd or 24th. I was in the 23rd or 24th year, because I wrote one book called Prison, My 8,344th Day. And that was a typical day in my 23rd year. So I still had 3 years to go before I finished it. And how did your career evolve after you left the Justice Center? And that was in Syracuse?
Yes. I went to a bunch of different private agencies, working with different populations from very young to the elderly. And I didn't have that passion. I always enjoyed working with people within my community to help them, but there was something that I was passionate about, the inmate population. And I think it started prior to my going to grad school. I worked for a criminal attorney, and I was a paralegal for him, and I knew I could only do so much for our clients, and I wanted to do more. I was intrigued and fascinated by people that were in the legal system, and I wanted to help them even more.
And what graduate school did you attend, and what did you study in grad school?
I attended Syracuse University for both my undergraduate and graduate degree. I have a bachelor's in psychology and my master's in social work.
So when did you finish grad school? What year?
I graduated in 2006, and I have my license from New York State, so I am an LMSW.
And what did you do after graduate school? What kind of career did you pursue after that?
My first paralegal job was at the Justice Center, where I was an intern. So full-time psychiatric social worker.
So you stayed at the same career that was also your first job, wasn't it?
My internship. Yes. Yep.
And so after graduate school, you went back there as a full-time employee?
Yes.
And then again, you were working with people who are incarcerated.
Yes, correct.
And now you're doing something are you back at the Justice Center right now?
I'm at the sister agency, which is Jamesville Correctional Facility. It's a medium level direct supervision facility. The capacity is 538 inmates. We're low now due to the coronavirus and people being released early. But I occasionally will fill in at the Justice Center as well. So I work between the two facilities, but I'm primarily at Jamesville Correctional Facility.
And your role there, again, is working with people at the tail end of their sentence as they're transitioning into society. Is that right?
I actually work with people at the beginning of their sentence throughout. And then some people, like I said, some people are assigned to another facility and move, but definitely they're at the Jamesville Correctional Facility more long-term. So I will work.
Go ahead.
I will work with them throughout their sentence.
And in what role do you work with them? On a one-on-one capacity, or do you teach in a group setting?
We unfortunately cannot do groups now because of the pandemic, but I am doing one-on-one visits with patients.
I see. And can you tell me what type of resources the people who are serving time have? If they're locked in there in the COVID pandemic, what resources do they have to learn and to stimulate their mind so they don't fall into this cycle of despondency, just being locked down?
Well, they do have a library, which is rather limited, but they do have access to not only a counselor, but they have social workers, and they also have a discharge planner. So sometimes when I meet with our patients, they'll request educational materials, which I can print and give to them. If they request a certain topic, I'll research and do my best to get them information. I'm also currently working on a syllabus for psychoeducational groups, and I would like to eventually do a group based on your Straight A Guide and have it maybe like an 8-week series. But I'm working on a bunch of syllabi to present to my supervisors so I can help them once we can resume groups again.
Do they have access to any type of digital device where they could watch a video like what we're doing right now?
No, unfortunately not.
Do they have access to a television?
Yes, they do have access to television and cable TV.
Some of those televisions and cable TVs today, they have the ability to use a flash drive. Do you know if their televisions have that ability?
I don't, but I can look into that.
The reason I suggest that is because we produce content with hopes of teaching and inspiring people in that situation. But in addition to providing written documentation and curriculums that are self-directed that they could do on their own with a goal, with really two goals. One of them is to help people develop their critical thinking skills so they understand how the opportunity costs that come with every decision, including the people with whom they associate while incarcerated and the books they read and the way they serve their sentence, as well as we strive to help them develop communication skills. Those are two fundamental aspects, I think, that will help them transition into society if they really develop a better understanding of how every decision puts them on the pathway for an opportunity or threatens further problems. I'm wondering if there's a way that I could deliver some of that content to you that you could incorporate. What would be the best way for me to do that?
Probably right now the best way would be my work email address.
Just send PDFs?
Yes.
Or would you rather me have a book sent from Amazon, because we have them produced as like soft cover books as well that people could go through, and there are exercises and questions that could either be done in a self-directed manner or could be done with a facilitator.
The books would be fantastic.
Sure, I'll order one today from Amazon. How many would you need? 2 or 3 would be better, so that you could pass it with your team?
And no, actually one should suffice, and we can photocopy and make handouts.
Okay.
We can share.
Well, then if you're going to photocopy and make handouts, you'd probably rather have the PDF.
Okay.
Which is easy. I can send you that right after this call, and you could just print it and send it out and photocopy it and send it to anybody who wants. And there's 10 chapters. If you'd like, I'll give you a summary of what those 10 modules are about.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So the challenge of people in prison is really believing in themselves, I think, and believing that what they're doing today has a huge influence. And that's something that I try to teach them as somebody who was inside of that same environment for so long. It really, what got me on the path is to really start by defining success. And so the first module, as it was with the Straight A Guide, is defining success, which is, you said, this is what we're going to say are our highest priorities. These are our values. This is how we're going to define ourselves. And then I tell the story from my experience. For me, it was to really come back to society and be prepared in a way that I could walk into any setting and nobody would know that I served a day in prison, even though I was in there for 26 years. So that was the first module. Well, I task and challenge the person to think about, well, what's important to you? Because that's not important to everybody. But if you can figure out how to define success, you can move on to the next module, which is setting clear goals. And those goals, of course, would kind of follow the SMART goal concept of making it very specific and measurable and time-bound. But we also make sure that the person organically kind of recognizes the relationship between the goal and what he said is important to him. And so those are the first 2 modules. They are the prerequisites to the Straight A Guide. Then there's 8 modules that really talk. The first one's about attitude and saying you've got to have the real commitment to success, 100% commitment. As the person defines it. It doesn't mean that you have to be better than somebody else, but be the best that you can be in moving forward toward the values that you say are important. And then 2 is aspiration. Whatever that person aspires to become, we want him to see himself in that role, whether it's a lawyer or a laborer. Whatever that person wants to aspire to be, we want him to see himself and to understand all of the the opportunities and threats that come with that role. 3, we want him to be able to identify action steps, really clear action steps about what he is doing today. And that might mean reading deliberately while he's locked in his cell. It might be building his vocabulary so he's familiar with the language of that area. It might be fitness. It might be working on mental health. Whatever those issues are, we want him to take action steps every day. And 4, we want him to develop his accountability metrics so he can determine whether he is on track. He doesn't have to wait for a certificate. Every day he's doing it on his own. And 5, we want him to be aware of opportunities. The opportunity, for example, to interact with you would be an opportunity. But he's got to be aware of it and recognize, hey, there's somebody here who can help me understand what I have to do, and simultaneously make the world aware of him. So if he's working on developing a support system of mentors or so on, he's got to find a way to reach out and attract those people to come into his life. And then 6 is he's got to be authentic, meaning he is definitely for real. He's not pretending that he's on this path. He is really working toward his goals. I think I skipped one. So it says 5, 6, 7 was authentic. And so it's authentic. The next one is achievement. He's got to celebrate every achievement. And it shows him how, that might be reading a book and then recognizing that this is what is putting me on the pathway to new opportunities. Like when I was writing and I was, I somehow connected to you, and now nearly 15 years later, we're having a conversation through a Zoom. All of that started because of a seed I started to sow when I was still in jail. And then the last one in the module is appreciation, and that's showing gratitude for the blessings that are coming our way by passing it along. So that's really the 10-part module. It's values, goals, attitude, aspiration, action, accountability, awareness, authenticity, achievement, appreciation. So 10 modules, and each one of them have a series of open-ended questions that the person can kind of work through and write as much or as little as he wants to do. But that becomes the building of his resume, a tool or a tactic that will help him overcome many of the challenges. That's what happened with me. And I don't say it's the only way, but I think it's an effective way. And I do think that people respond well to it because it came from somebody who was once in serving time in that type of environment. So I'm happy to send that to you as soon as we end this call. And I hope that you'll share it with your team and let me know if the people are responding to it. And what would be really great, but it's unfortunate because you don't have an interactive way. But if there were an interactive way, if your team was interested in having something, we could make it so they could ask questions. And as they asked questions, I could respond to those questions. And so they feel like it's really getting the information that they want.
Could we do that through me possibly until they can go back to a classroom?
Sure.
I would love to.
Yeah, if your team does it, because we have the Prison Professors YouTube channel, and I produce these videos on the YouTube channel with hopes of teaching and inspiring family members how to work and help their loved ones inside. And we would want to have some type of a relationship with the institution that might help us offset the cost. But if there's no budget, then we'll donate as a donation. I don't know if your institution has a budget for educational programs like this, but we could certainly create something to help the people inside of it. That's really something I feel very passionately about giving.
I can look into the budget as well and see what we can do on that end.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's we're doing this with a lot of jails and prisons. If you look at the Prison Professors channel, you'll see that I have worked with the Mecklenburg County Jail, for example, that in that capacity. But they were able to commandeer a television set and put the people in a day room, and then I did actually a Zoom call like this with the people in custody, and they were able to ask questions and we recorded the whole thing. So that's already on the Prison Professors channel. And then we have them on, I have like more than 700 videos there. So I interview formerly incarcerated people that came back successfully. I interview business leaders who open job opportunities. I document like how I use these tools to launch businesses outside, even though I was in prison for 26 years. So all of that becomes a tool that I hope help people like you do your job more effectively, because instead of living with somebody who might be saying, oh, you don't know what it's like to be in here, you can show them, well, you're right, I don't, but here are people who do. And then they get to watch these videos with, people who are telling them, yeah, that the decisions that you make today have an enormous influence on what you become in the months, years, and decades ahead. So I will send this information to you. I really want to thank you for spending some time on your time off talking with the Prison Professors channel. I will make this video live, and I will send you a link to it that you could share with your colleagues. And I will also send you both the PDF, but also the softcover book, because it might be something that you want to add to your library at the jail.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to have met you, and I appreciate your time. This is so exciting.
It's more exciting for me because this is really the seeds that I started to plant when I was inside of a prison, to say, well, someday the work that I'm doing right now is going to have an influence on helping more people. And that's really what I always try to do, and what our team tries to do at Prison Professors is help people in struggle reach their highest potential. So I appreciate you for making that dream a reality.
And I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'll end this recording here. We're at a half an hour, and I'll send you the link and all the information. Thank you. Hold on. And one more thing I want to say. And if you haven't subscribed to the Prison Professors program, please hit the subscribe button below. This is the way we spread our message to more people around the country. Thank you. Okay, and I'll just hit